So when I meet people, similar to where we are right now, we know each other. We've met, we're starting to figure things out. But when I meet people, what I usually get when people find out I'm an interior designer is, oh my goodness, that must be so much fun. And it is. But following questions and conversation never goes the way I would like it to go, or it definitely doesn't go the way that the person I'm meeting probably expected it to go. So in today's video, I'm going to go over the top questions and comments I get when people meet me and find out that I'm a commercial interior designer. So the first thing they usually say is that must be so much fun. And it is fun. However, what I like to point out to people is that the fun part, the picking out the colors and the finishes, is literally like 2% of what I do. The majority of it is learning about the problems, understanding the goals. Then once we've played with the fun part, the finishes and the furniture, then the other half of that 80%, 90% of the work is spent making sure that the product is ordered correctly, making sure that the product is placed correctly, helping to manage all of those things to make sure that the project turns out the way the clients and I have talked about and planned for it to go. So yes, it is fun, but there's much more work to it than people assume based on what they have been shown on TV, YouTube, and magazines. So that's not their fault. So I understand where that question is coming from. The next thing I'm usually said to me is, I can't have you over to my house. You would definitely judge it. Okay. First of all, I am not ever going to judge someone's house. That is your space that you have curated to reflect you and your personality and what makes you feel comfortable at home. That is not anything anyone should be judging. I might see things like, okay, one thing I really don't like is when pictures are staggered on a wall. That bothers me because if you're doing that down staircase and you're echoing the stairs, then yeah, that makes sense. But if you're just staggering it, I think it's just laziness. And you're trying to hide. That is one thing that bothers me. But that's a personal preference. And I'm not ever going to point that out and say, ooh, you did that wrong. That's a mistake. No, there's no mistakes. This is your home. You aren't making a mistake by making it your home. So no. If you welcome me to your home, I will not be judging it. I will not be critiquing it. I'll probably be studying it to get a better understanding of you, just because that's what I find fascinating, but I won't be judging it. The next question I get is, how do I not impose my taste onto a person's design? And I understand where that's coming from, because a lot of the big designers, that's why they're hired, because people want their aesthetic. And I appreciate that. If that's what you're going for, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But for the projects that I'm working on, what I find is that what I like, I use as an initial filter, but I'm never using that as the selection. Like the other day, I was making a selection for a client and I showed him two different things. The one I really liked, and then the one that I thought he was going to like. But the one I thought he was going to like is the one he liked. But while I filtered it through my taste, we went with the light that he wanted. And quite honestly, I really loved that lamp too. It was gorgeous and it fit with the aesthetic he was going for. And so that is how I use my taste, my aesthetic, to do an initial scan of things, but I never put my taste onto a project. Which also leads into the second question I get is, how do I not do the same design over and over again? And that is really easy and really fun, because I never have the same client over and over again. Each client, each project, even if it's the same client but a different project, is so completely different. And that's the fun part about interior design, is I don't want to do the same project over and over again. I want to explore and try and experiment and ask and tweak. That's the fun part. And so if I did the same project over and over again, I wouldn't be doing this. It wouldn't be fun for me. So that's what I really like, is to do something different over and over again. For example, one client that I'm working with, we did a lobby entertainment space for one project. The goal was to have a connection between the work area and the break area so that people could interact with each other better. And that was one type of project. But now we're doing another project and it's completely different. Now, and so the first project was like neutrals and safer. And now we're talking about tin ceilings and bold colors. And it's the same client, but we're doing something completely different. So even that isn't going to be the same. And that's what I love, is the opportunity to play and try out new things and that sort of bit. Also, I really enjoy pushing my clients. I think a lot of people would love to try new things, but they're nervous to. I usually tell people, or what I do is I call it giving permission. I think everybody knows what they like and what they want to do. They just don't want to make a glaring mistake. And so that's where I welcome people to call me and just say, hey, I'm thinking of doing XYZ. Is this a horrible idea? Am I going to be laughed at? I'm happy to give permission. That's what a lot of people just really need is like permission. And I don't mind giving it. I think it makes sense. And I like seeing what people have done. So it's fun to give permission to somebody on a project that they've done on their own. People usually know what they want to do. They just don't know if it's safe to do, if it makes sense to do. And I can appreciate that. The next thing I hear is your house must be beautiful. I appreciate the comment, but the story, the shoemaker has no shoes definitely applies in my situation. I would love to gut and remodel my home, but like everyone, I have a budget and I have other people's opinions and tastes that I need to take into consideration. And so it just hasn't happened yet. I would love the opportunity to do it, but even when I do it, I really think I'm going to hire a residential interior designer to help me. Simply because when clients come to me, they have so many ideas and they really need to have somebody help filter them. And that is my problem when it comes to my home, is I have so many ideas and I can see all the possibilities. And so it's very hard for me to say yes, yes, and yes. And so that's where I think a residential interior designer would be really helpful to come in and help me. We both understand like what we're going for and I understand the finishes that we're working with, but just to have somebody narrow it down for me who's not like stuck living in my head and thinking about it all the time would be really helpful and a great use of my time, because then that frees me up to do more videos and to help you guys. So that's where I'm saying, yeah, I don't have a beautiful house. I do like my house. I think it looks good. And that there are backstories to the design of my house that I'm excited to share at a later date. At this point in my career, I have a lot of fun stories to share about what's come across my trail. My storyline. Yeah, that's a story for another day. The next thing I get is I understand people are relating to me and that's fine. I usually get, I wanted to be a designer. My daughter wants to be a designer. I understand the fun that is perceived and shown about being an interior designer. However, what I really want people to understand is that when I went to school for interior design, I decided I wanted to be a designer when I was 12, and I've never, ever wanted to do anything else but that. Half of my class the first semester dropped out halfway through or at the semester point because they realized that we had to learn about codes and safety requirements and clearances. It's very technical. There's a lot of elements to interior design that are not fun, that are boring. We have to take an NCIDQ exam to get our license, and that is a lot of codes, really boring codes. And if you don't love this profession, that's not going to be something you're going to want to do. And that's where people being a stylist is a much better fit. And I love that for them. That's something that is very valuable. But that's also what I want people to understand, is that interior design is not a joke. It's not just picking colors and finishes. It's a serious profession that is achieved by going to school, getting your degree, passing a board exam, and getting your license. And I don't know that people really understand that. And so I'm glad you and your daughter and your friend or whomever wanted to go into interior design, but I'm also glad that you found a profession that's more in line with what you want to do, because interior design is no joke. it's a lot of work. The last question I'm going to touch on is people asking me what I think about Joanna Gaines or a certain famous interior designer or a certain trend that's going on, i.e. like the farmhouse style. I don't really care because that again is the frosting on a project. It's not the main part of a project. And yes, I will admit that there are some design projects where really aesthetic is the goal. We want to make this space look well or look good. If an interior is functioning well, which is primary, and it just hasn't been touched for the last 20 years, yes, it makes sense to update finishes and furniture. But if it's just, we want to put this aesthetic into our space because it's current, my next question is going to be, what are your company values? What is important to your company? If being on top of trends is important to your company and your company's brand, yes, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And we are going to ride that wave. And then, yes, I will tell you what I think about that. But if you're a law firm and stability is your value in your business, turning over your style or designing to a style that's current right now goes completely against your brand, and it's not important. And so that's why I don't think it's important. I do think Joanna Gaines, when her aesthetic was brand new, I thought it was brilliant because she was a designer going on her own and she found something unique to her. I respect that. I think that is 100% what everyone should do. Everyone should find their own aesthetic. The things that make them happy, bring them joy, and speak to them. It was on brand for them because it was a finish that became obvious through their renovations. And they liked the way it looked. So it was on brand with them. And then everyone took it over because they liked the way it looked, but it wasn't on brand to them. I think they've done a good job reinventing themselves to explore different things. And again, so that's on brand with them and that I can applaud. But if somebody is asking me about like the color of the year, there's ways we can incorporate it, but if a dusty peach color is not on brand for you because you're not a 50s diner, or maybe a female-based company like a salon or a spa, something where a lot of women go and women really respond typically to that color, then I don't think that that's a color you should be trying to work into your office interior. So yeah, there's times and places, but it's not usually something I like speaking to because I don't think it's important. So I would love to know what questions you've always wanted to ask a designer about what we do, especially obviously in commercial interior design. There aren't a lot of questions about it, so you'll probably be the first one to ask it. Please leave those in the comments section below. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. I hope I shared a few things with you, and check out the next video.